Hey everyone, Simon here, and we've got a Minecraft design school thing. Alright, well let me just tell you about this one. A guy called Bob Joe contacted me on YouTube, and he says he has a spawn for a factions server. Now I haven't played, actually have I? I think I actually have played factions server before. I haven't played very much of any multiplayer to be honest. So I'm not that familiar with the factions um, mod, but I understand it's competitive PvP, and you can you can have factions basically. That you kind of work together, you build fortresses, and you kill each other and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if Bob actually designed this spawn himself. I mean, he never says specifically who designed it, and he doesn't have much to say about it either. Like I tried multiple times to get him to kind of elaborate on what his design thinking and design process was in designing this thing, but he never really answered the questions. So he might not be the designer, and I don't, it's always a bit concerning when somebody can't explain their designs. Like, you know, if you've thought about your design for a week and you spent a week building it, you can write an essay about it. I mean, you might not like writing essays, but you can if you wanted to, because you were there the whole time, and you know what every single decision was because you made them. So if somebody can't write an essay, not that they don't want to, but they can't actually write an essay about their design, it kind of means they weren't thinking. And I don't mean this, I don't mean to say this to kind of insult anyone or to put anyone down, but you know, as somebody who has been trained in design, who's been to architecture school, and who does this, you get used to being able to talk about your design, and you know that you can't do it because you spend a whole month, a whole week or a whole month designing this thing yourself, and of course you can talk about it because you've done all this work. Like you can spend hours and hours talking about it, and that's a sign of a good design, that you can actually talk about it. If you've got nothing to talk about, then you don't have a design really. Does that make, I don't know if that kind of makes sense to you or not. Anyway, let's not talk about that too much. So he doesn't say much, but Bob does say he's opening a new faction server, and I believe I have a great spawn, he says. And then he doesn't actually say anything about the spawn. He just says, you know, please do a video and all that kind of stuff. So let me just click on some of his other messages if I can get this to load. No, please, what's going on? Hold on. Wait a minute. Can I seriously not load this message? Did this seriously just crash on me? Okay, it's back. No, it's not back, my bad. Hold that thought. Okay, slight technical difficulties, but that should be okay now. So the next message he sends me, he says, I want you to give me feedback about how it looks, the quality of the spawn. Is it easy to navigate through? Would players play with the spawn? And is the spawn well built for a factions server? See, again, like, it's not very specific, is it? How it looks, oh man, that's easy, we can do that. The quality of the spawn, what does that mean? Like, by what criteria do you judge the quality? Like, but he said, so that kind of doesn't say anything. The quality of the spawn, I don't know what criteria. So that doesn't really say anything. Is it easy to navigate through? Okay, I can do that. Would players play with the spawn? I don't know what that means. I'm not sure if he means whether the players would vandalize the spawn, or if the players would use it as it is intended to be used, or what that means. And then, is the spawn well built for a faction server? That, again, we need to be more specific about the criteria. What exactly do you want this faction server to accomplish? Because from what I understand, like in the faction server, you have a spawn area, and then you can claim areas outside the spawn area. And the spawn area, I think it's a safe spot. I'm not sure, but I think it's like the PvP happens outside of the spawn. And so then people kind of camp in the spawn area sometimes. This is what I remember from a PvP server I've played on briefly a while ago. So there's these dynamics like camping and like spawn camping and then ambushing people at the spawn and stuff like that. So there's that to consider. He never really elaborates on. Oh, his name's Connor. I wonder if he minds if Bob. So yeah. So he never really elaborates on that neither. So I'm not entirely sure what it means by well built for a factions server. And then the next thing he says is it designed well. Again, like it's too broad. You need some specific criteria to say is it designed well. What does it mean? Is it designed well? Is it easy to navigate around? That I can do. Is there anything that really needs to be changed? Again, by what criteria? Like you have to decide what's good or bad before you decide what needs to be changed, right? And then anything else you can really point out. So in all these messages, it seems like he doesn't really have a clear idea of what he wants. Like he's just asking, "Is it good? Is it good?" And then I tried to ask him like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, what would a good factions server spawn do?" And he never really explains. So okay, that's fair enough. That's not a that happens. Like different people have different levels of, I guess, eloquence in talking about design. So given that he's given me those criteria to work with, let's see what that's kind of complicated, isn't it? And lagging. Okay, stop lagging, please. Hope that doesn't desync the audio. So you start off. Wow, that's really bad. Why am I lagging so bad? Okay, so you start off in the middle here, right? It looks fine, except no, it looks fine. It looks fine. So there's a middle bit. There's these outer bits. What do these do? Do you drop down and then you enter the PvP? Like, okay, there's a middle bit. What does the middle bit do? I think the switch is supposed to trigger something, but whatever it is, it's not working here. I think it's meant to be for the server. Maybe it teleports you somewhere or gives you some sort of messages and tells you what's going on. Are we supposed to be able to get up here? Let me just check. Oh, I'm not in creative. Game mode 1. Okay. Am I supposed to be able to get up here? Or do you drop down? Or is that where you spawn? Diamonds? Like, why would you have all this stuff? I don't really understand why that stuff is there. So it's a really, really tall tower, right? Let me just fly up the middle. Are you supposed to be able to get up here? Alright, more towers, more tower, and then more tower. And then nothing. Okay, there's nothing up here. I don't think you're supposed to be able to walk up here. And it's a faction server, so unless you're a mod or an admin, I guess, then you can fly up there, although you have no reason to fly up there anyway. Okay, so there's that. And then from here, there's 4 exits in a circle out to a switch. Am I supposed to land on the switch or not? And then, well, like it kind of needs more light, I think. I don't know if you mind that it's so dark during the nighttime. Maybe more glowstone around here would be useful. So there's light here. Okay, I see there's a staircase down there. I don't understand why it's so elaborate. Like, there's no information being conveyed to me. This is a server. This is a factions server, so I don't know if it's PvP or if it's just kind of free build. It's not creative. I think it's supposed to be survival. And then you come down the stairs. Wait a minute, you can't get off the stairs? You can't get off this. Wait a minute. You can't get off the stairs here. Because it's like, well, you can if you just kind of jump out of it. Actually, can you? Yeah, you can just jump out of it like this. But otherwise you can't get out of the staircase. Okay, let me just keep an eye on where I am. And then you come out here. Okay, there's like farms and things. Are people supposed to be able to get materials from here, like wheat and pumpkins? Are they supposed to be able to harvest this stuff? Or is this still protected? Okay, and then you go all the way out there, come all the way around here, more staircase. And then this stuff... There's a lobby here, but why? Oh, okay. So the staircase ends here, so if I carried on down the staircase I would be down here, and then I can go around and go back upstairs again. Seems... I mean, it doesn't really achieve anything. I mean, the circulation just goes back and around. And then it leads to a dead end, kind of. And then this goes down here. I really don't understand why it's so elaborate. Okay, I see. Here we go. So now we have... Is this a shop? Or is it just... It's not a shop, is it? It's just decoration. Like, it doesn't actually serve any function in the server. And then there's a library, okay. And then there's... Ah. Okay, so there's that. Right, okay, so let's come back in here. And then gardens and more rooms and a giant hall where the floor is not flat. It's slightly strange, but I guess it doesn't really matter in the game because you just walk over it, right? You wouldn't do this in real life because people would trip over these gaps and just fall over. But it's fine in the game because it doesn't really matter in the game. You just walk over it. Okay, this central hall, nothing on the ceiling though. That might be like a bit disappointing given how detailed, you know, this is. You look up and there's nothing there, but that's not a huge problem. And then elaborate halls, really fancy corridors and things, and the circulation is a bit confusing. The circulation is quite confusing. Like, I don't know where I'm going or like where anything leads. Oh look, a villager. It's got a name. George. Hi George. Okay, so now we're here. The circulation is quite confusing. You've got a really big complex here. You might want to okay, we're back here. You might want to have some color coding or some signage or some sort of spatial hierarchy, because everything is white. Like, everything is this material, the quartz material. And so there's nothing to differentiate one part from another. I know you've spent all this time building this massive thing, and I don't really want to tell you to rebuild the whole thing in a different material. But I kind of want to tell you to build the whole thing in a different material. Or at least parts of it. In the sense that, like, we're not... Like, if you imagine, like, if the central bit is quartz, and then there's a different material outside, then just walking into this next area, you know you're entering a different area because it looks different, because the materials are different, because the colors are different. Whereas here, like, everything's quartz, and it's really big and it's really complex, and so I can't tell which way is, you know, is the middle, which way is going out and everything. And in fact, wait a minute, didn't we go past by a similar thing on the other side of the building? I think we did. I think the whole thing is symmetrical too, so like there's not really enough differentiation between the different parts of the building for people to navigate, if that makes sense. Let me just fly out. So it is symmetrical, right? Yeah, and everything's the same material, see? So, like, you know, no matter where you are, it looks pretty much the same as everywhere else, and so then it's very difficult to identify where you are. But again, I feel bad telling you to rebuild the whole thing in a different material. But maybe just the paths, maybe just the paths, maybe not the whole thing. But I mean, if the paths with different materials or different colors, or more signage at least. And it's, yeah, again, I don't want to tell you to redo the whole thing, but your main walkways, if possible, should ideally look like straight through, if that makes sense. Like, if there's a main road or a main walkway, you should be able to see your destination, so that way you can see where you're going. So imagine you see your destination like on the other side of here, and then you just see it. Whereas if you have like a staircase coming up and a staircase going down, then you break the line of sight. Or well, I mean, this is not even straight, is it? Then you break the line of sight, and then you can't really tell where you're going anymore. So here, for example, I can see outside. Okay, so that's an exit. Like I can see the sky, I can see the ground outside. So I can tell that this is an exit, right? And then I look back this way, like I don't know what's over there, I don't know what's over there. Like these sight lines are, it allows people to really kind of figure out where they are and figure out where they're going. Whereas if people can't see where they're going, then they get lost. And that's the problem. So we're supposed to come through the middle, and we should eventually arrive at the central staircase, but it's up there. So to get up there, we have to... Like, you see what I'm trying to say? Like, I don't know which... Like, what's more important? Okay, so the middle is more important, and you can see like the holes in the middle are bigger. But aside from this cross, everything else is side. And like that, I mean, you spend a lot of time on these kind of really intricate shapes and patterns, but then the doorways are lost because everything is detailed, everything is detailed, everything is detailed, everything is detailed. Then you can barely see the opening within all of this noise. Like the concept of like noise and background. If you want something to stand out, you really need to, only the important stuff should be complex. Everything else should be plain, and that way the important stuff will stand out. Whereas if the foreground is complex and the background is complex, then everything is complex, and you can't tell the difference between the foreground and the background, and you can't tell what's important and what's not. Like when you look up like this, like if I don't move the mouse, you can't actually see that there's a balcony up there, right? Like it's only when I move that you can kind of see there's like two layers to that space, but even then you can barely see that there's a balcony there. It's because there's so much noise, like so much more noise, like visual noise. Like it's kind of like sounds, but it's what you see is that there's a lot of different colors, a lot of different shapes, and so then it's very hard to tell what's what. And this is I mean, like when you kind of create these patterns and shapes, it's useful to think of it as a way to communicate things to other people, and this is not something that comes naturally, I guess, or not something that people think about. But like all forms of art is communication. Like a painting is showing you a picture, and a sculpture is showing you a shape, and architecture you might think of as showing you a space. So when you look into a room, that there's walls, there's doors, there's windows. I mean, you can understand that space because you can recognize these shapes and you can recognize these patterns and colors. Whereas here, like, are those balconies? Is that a balcony? Is that a balcony? Is that a balcony? Like, you have all these kind of nooks and crannies, and then you can't tell which ones are accessible and which ones are not. Let me just fly up here. And in fact, none of these are accessible. None of these are hallways or corridors behind them. You can't actually go up there, right? But you can't tell. You can't tell when you step back. And so then when people try to walk through this space, it will become very confusing for people because they can't tell if like is that a room behind there? I can't tell because of all these shapes. Like you can go a little bit overboard with the detailing. Okay, so back to like I feel so bad saying stuff like this because it's like, hey, good job, do it again. I mean, I feel so bad because you put so much work into it, and I can see you put so much work into it. But then it's like I really think like you put too much work in too many places. And you know, if you have a little bit of contrast, have a little bit of discipline as to where you put the detailing and how you put the detailing, instead of putting it everywhere, putting it only where it's important and where it makes sense, then things will work out a lot better. And things will be more legible and people can understand your space a lot easier. I mean, obviously you have the skill and you have the ability to do detailing, but it doesn't mean that it's a good idea to put it everywhere. Does that? I mean, is that good advice? Lag again, sorry about that. So the other thing is it a good factions spawn? I have no idea. Well, first of all, walking through this, I didn't get any information about factions at all. So if you ask me how this server works, I'd tell you I don't know. I don't know any of the rules. I don't know any of the commands. I don't know what what I'm allowed to do and what I'm not allowed to do. So I've walked through all of this, and there's no information has been given to me. So you might be, I think you should be concerned about that because rules are quite important on servers, based on my experience. Like yeah, rules are important. So you need players to understand how this server works. I'm just lagging terribly. I'm sorry about this. And also, this building kind of just ends. There's ground outside, and there's a wall around. I can see that. But then there's really nothing on the ground outside. And this is another thing I often say as well. Architecture is not just about making buildings. Architecture is also making the landscape. Like the landscape counts as well. You've just kind of put a wall on the existing landscape and that's it. Whoa, hey, laggy. Wow, my computer's really struggling right now. I wonder why. Yeah, so I mean you've made the building and it's really detailed, really awesome. But then you just kind of left the ground, and then this is the wall, and then people drop out and that's it, and they're on their own in the wild. And the idea is they can't get back in, right? Because it's a factions server and they're not really allowed to. Basically, once they're out of the safety of the spawn area, they're out. So I mean, as a server spawn, if you're only concerned about having a spawn area for a server, this is completely overblown. Like, this is way too complex, way too big. But if you want a showpiece in the middle of your server, then okay, you've got it, you've done it. Yeah, again, like you really didn't say very much in your messages to me. So I can't really tell what you want this server to be, or even what you want this spawn to be. From what I see, it's a massive showpiece, which seems to belong in the creative server more than than a survival PvP server. See, the thing is, I don't know if I should talk about my philosophy. My philosophy is that, Minecraft allows people to build their own thing. And if I were to run my own server, I would not make a really fancy spawn, because the server is not about what I build. The server is about what all the other players build. I guess it's what I build as well, but what the players build together is what is important. Like what I build as the admin is not important. Maybe what I build as a player is important, but what I build as the admin is not, because I mean Minecraft is about everybody building together, in my opinion. But this is your server, so you can decide what to do. Is it designed well? If I have to be completely honest, not as well as it could be. Confusing. It is confusing to navigate. Like it takes a long time to figure out how to get out of it and into the survival server. And it's not easy to navigate. It's confusing. No, is it easy to navigate around? No, it's not. But it's not that difficult to fix, I think. If you just highlight the main paths in a different material and maybe figure out a clear visual language so that not everything is highly detailed everywhere, so that you can highlight, where you want people to go, then it will be easier to navigate. Is there anything that really needs to be changed? Well, you don't give me any criteria by which to decide that. Like you say it's a factions... Is it creative? Is it a creative server? Or is it a survival server? If it's a creative server, then it doesn't really matter. If it's a survival server, then I guess it doesn't really matter neither, because the whole point is people would just leave the spawn and get on with their own business. Anything else you can really point out? What I think, I mean, based on the messages you've sent me, what I think has happened here is that you haven't really been clear about what your design objective is. I think what you've done is you say, make a spawn, make an awesome spawn, and then somebody made an awesome spawn, and that's it. And unfortunately, to kind of manage a design project, you need to do more than that. You have to be very clear about what the design, what the spawn should do and should not do. I mean, at the very least, I think for a multiplayer server, it needs to explain the rules and the mods that are running on the server, which it didn't. I just kind of walked through it and there were no instructions, no help, nothing. It needs that at least. And then, I guess, well, what is the relationship between this build and everything else in the server then? There's a wall around it, and people just leave and that's it? Is that it? Like people just kind of get out of the spawn, jump over the wall, and then do their own thing? If that's the case, then the spawn doesn't even matter. I mean, I'm just kind of being brutally honest here. Like, what does the spawn do? What do you need the spawn to do? Like, these are the questions that I think, if you answer them, you would end up with a better idea of what you want your server to be. Anyway, yeah, it's it's a PvP server, but this spawn doesn't contribute towards the PvP in any way that I can see. It's a giant creative showpiece in the middle of a PvP server. And that's what it is. I mean, if that's what you want, then that's what you've got. Right? Maybe you should... Maybe you don't even just take my opinion for it. Maybe just run your server and see how people respond. It's a risky thing. I don't know if you like doing that, because whenever you put something out into the public, you'll have people criticize you, and you'll have people praise you as well. I mean, you have both. And you have some people who don't really know what they're talking about, and some people who really do know what they're talking about. But, you know, if you're going to run a server, that's going to happen anyway, I guess. I mean, see what other people say. Don't just take my word for it. But see what everybody else has to say as well. And you might not like what you have to hear, or you might really like what you have to hear. I don't know. What else do I have to say? Nothing much, really. I need to sort out why my computer's lagging so bad. I need to restart this thing. Anyway, I think I'll stop talking here. It's a really impressive building. I just don't know how it fits in a PvP server. Anyway, if anybody else watching this has any comments, or if you've any experience with PvP servers and how a spawn may be built to improve the PvP experience, by all means leave comments. Like, everybody kind of share your ideas if you want to. Okay, I'll stop rambling here. Hope that's helpful. I really hope that's helpful. Alright, I'll see you guys. This is SCKChui's Minecraft Design School. You send me your questions and your save file or your server IP address, and I will give you architecture design advice and feedback. See the video description for more details. Seriously, you should read the description before you send me anything. Thank you.